This is crazy. You have legs.
I do.
Who knew?
I have an upper torso.
I was 99% positive it was just chest up with
No,
you.
no.
Okay,
no.
this is nuts.
I actually wear pants,
In
too.
the flesh.
Tonight was the Holiday Bash episode of AEW Dynamite. I am the Solomonster, and a very happy holiday to all of you. We are keeping the festive theme as we did on Monday. It carries over here into Wednesday. We have snow on the ground. We have lights. Look at that little hat on Samoa Joe. Have you ever seen an angry Santa like that before? I made sure I put it on Joe. Well, Steve did. And not MJF. He doesn't celebrate Christmas. But MJF was all over the show tonight. Before we talk about MJF, though, tonight we had the final 3 matches. In the Gold League group here in the Continental Classic, the final singles matches we had on this show before next week's semifinal, which in fact is not going to be a singles match. It has been confirmed that we are going to be getting a triple threat match next week. But the 3 matches we had tonight, Swerve Strickland had to rebound from last week's loss to Jon Moxley. And he did, with a win over Roosh. We also had a match between Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal, the 2 men who have gone winless so far in this tournament. One of them now finally has a win. And in the main event, we had Jon Moxley one-on-one against Switchblade Jay White for the first time since the 2019 G1 Climax. They went one-on-one. And Jay White pinned Jon Moxley. Moxley finally loses. That was the outcome that surprised me the most out of all of them on the show tonight. And yet that was the tournament match I liked the least. And I liked the match. I thought the main event was very good, but I actually enjoyed the other 2 matches more, even though the main event finish was more surprising to me. But I have been enjoying this tournament so far. I am a big fan of the G1. I don't always get to catch all of it when the G1 rolls around, but there's just something about it I enjoy following. And so when Tony Khan announced that he was basically bringing the G1 over to AEW, I was excited because they certainly have more than enough talent to fill in a tournament bracket. And there were names that I wish were in the tournament that were not for one reason or another. But you look at the lineup in the Gold League, you look at the lineup in the Blue League, up and down. Bryan Danielson, Brody King, Andrade, Jay White, Swerve Strickland, Mark Briscoe, on and on and on, right? Tons of talent in this tournament. And we have been getting banger after banger match every single week. And there are stories that have been weaved into the tournament, whether involves injuries, whether it involves someone like Eddie Kingston who falls behind and he's in a must-win situation. He has to battle his way back. There's always little stories playing itself out in this tournament. And so now as we are coming to a close, next weekend, the Continental Classic will be coming to an end. I have very much enjoyed what we have gotten out of this tournament. MJF and Samoa Joe were also on this show tonight. They came face-to-face in the ring. We had the Devil's Minions, the Devil's Rejects, whatever you want to call them. They showed up. We got another message from the Devil, whoever he or she is. And now next week, there's going to be a Ring of Honor World Tag Team title match, or will there be? We've been down this road once before where we were supposed to get a match and we didn't get a match. Although I think it's a little bit dangerous to promote a match again and pull the same stunt twice. But MJF is hurt. He is dealing with an injury. Nothing that he can't work through, but doing a match with him 3 days before the pay-per-view, that is not a risk I would be taking. I'm not so sure that match is going to end up happening anyway. But I'll tell you what, whatever they did on the show with the Devil stuff in that segment, I found the segment that came later on, Backstage, far more interesting, involving MJF and Swerve Strickland. This was the first time, to my knowledge, the first time that we have had a face-to-face interaction on the show between these two men. The first time in AEW that their paths have crossed, although they do have history together on the independent scene. This wasn't even in the ring. This was in the back. This was in a hallway. This is basically bumping into somebody in the hallway, and they went and they had an excellent segment that has me ready to see them. I wish the main event of World's End, and I love Samoa Joe, but I wish the main event of World's End was Swerve against MJF. How much longer are they going to make us wait before we get that match? That's the match I want to see. And again, if this tournament that we're in the middle of was for the right challenge for the AEW World title at Revolution, it would be perfect. It would be the perfect opportunity to put Swerve over and send him to the main event at Revolution, which I think that may be the title match anyhow. And if it's going to be the title match, it begs the question that, are we going to have the Triple Crown winner challenging for the title, or is he not going to win the tournament? And maybe they do have bigger plans for him in the early part of 2024. That's the match I want to see. And that first interaction tonight between the two of them was gold. It was the best thing on the show. We also had Jim Ross back in Oklahoma. It was good to see JR. And I actually thought that JR was on his A game tonight like we haven't seen him or heard him in a very long time. He was extra motivated to be back. Of course, they were in Oklahoma, so he was going to be extra motivated anyway. I really like this show, so let's talk about it. This is your AEW Dynamite review for Wednesday, December 20th, 2023. I am the Solomonster. I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I want to ask you to hit that subscribe button. I want to ask you to like the video because it helps the video. And if we hit 400 likes during the live stream, we will do our Be the Booker segment. Later on, Super Chats are open. You will see them popping up on your screen over the snow mound there. And a shout out to Lady Fire Panda, who already dropped a lot of love tonight, and also gifted 10 channel memberships. So welcome to our 10 new members. You can thank Fire Panda for that. And also, I want to give a shout out to the AEW World Champion, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, because earlier today I posted the interview that I conducted with him on Monday. The interview went live. There's a brief chat that we had on Monday out on Long Island, talking about a whole host of different topics, including what he and John Cena chatted about on the red carpet last week at the Iron Claw premiere. Iron Claw premieres, actually, I think, is it tomorrow? I think it's midnight tomorrow or Friday, but the movie is out this week. So he told me what John Cena and he talked about. I asked him about Tony Khan's comments as well that he made at the final battle scrum last week, where Tony Khan mentioned the fact that, AEW is constantly under attack, and whether or not he agrees with that and why he thinks that is. And he had a very interesting response that has elicited a lot of feedback. Also talked to him about the state of his arm in the torn labrum heading into World's End, some Nassau Coliseum memories. I wish I had more time to ask him more questions. I certainly had more to ask, but all of that is up right now on the channel, so please go ahead and support, share it out, like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you thought. And a very hearty thank you to MJF for the time, and congratulations, because he is at the age of 27, the ripe old age of 27. MJF is now a part of a Hall of Fame, and I am sure that will not be the only Hall of Fame that he is inducted into when his career is over. I would be willing to bet you money on that. So, we got a cold open to this show tonight. Straight into the first of 3 Continental Classic matches in the Gold League. This one was with Swerve Strickland and Roosh. And let me just, for those of you who are watching here on the video, let me bring up the Gold League standing. Now, these were the Gold League standings coming into the show tonight. Not at the end of the show, but coming into the show. And as you can see here, Jon Moxley was sitting atop the Gold League with 12 points. Swerve Strickland was behind him with 9 points, Roosh with 6. Down at the bottom was Jay White, who was tied with Swerve with 9 points. And you see the double goose egg there for Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal. So this is what the standings look like coming into Dynamite tonight. I know, I'm throwing math at you here. Throwing math at you at 11 o'clock at night. I know, I hate it too. Lots of Swerve fans tonight in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is not the only place that you will find Swerve fans. Roosh, he nailed an over-the-top rope dive early in the match and came up lame. He was favoring the injured leg. He had hurt his hamstring in the match with Mark Briscoe a few weeks ago, so he had the hamstring all wrapped up. Swerve also had his right shoulder taped up. He had, I guess it was the kinesio tape on his right shoulder. You know, again, these are things, now maybe they are banged up legitimately. It's always possible. But, you know, him with the tape on his shoulder, Roosh with the wrap around his leg. It just illustrates how taxing a tournament like this can be. So I like that. You know, I like that it shows you how grueling it is week after week. You know, they're all wrestling each other. They're all trying to get to the semifinals. It's like a competition. Tony Khan said that at the beginning of all this. If you are a big fan of sports wrestling, the sports element of wrestling, then this is the tournament for you. If you're a fan of the G1, this is the tournament for you. Right up your alley. There was a spot where Roosh, he stomped his foot down on the mat right before the delay kick in the corner that he usually does. But instead of hitting the kick, he opted instead to flip everybody off. So very early in the match, it was illustrated who the heel was. Who the heel was, and it was not Swerve Strickland. So the people booed Roosh. They ended up on the floor. Roosh hit a front drop kick that sent Swerve careening backwards into the barricade. And both men were down heading into the picture-in-picture break. We came back from the break, and both men traded snap Germans and pump kicks at the same time. That led to a double down. After that, Strickland charged. Roosh, though, was ready, and he hit an overhead belly-to-belly suplex, and he tossed Swerve overhead into the corner turnbuckles. Roosh was looking for bull's horns, but his leg gave out on him as he was charging in. And Swerve capitalized. He put him in a single leg crab, transitioned into a stretch muffler. Roosh, though, was able to counter into a cradle, almost got 3. Roosh hit a straightjacket pile driver, just dropped him straight down on his head. And he covered. Swerve, though, kicked out at 2.9. Both men went to the apron. They were exchanging chops until Roosh threw Swerve clear over his head to the floor. Back inside, Roosh took a long time going up top because of the bad leg, and he ended up missing a senton, very much like the one that Tozawa hit on Ivar on Monday. That didn't work out too well for Tozawa. Didn't work out well for Roosh here either. He missed the senton. And Strickland answered with a 450 splash. Roosh, though, kicked out at 1 from a 450. Roosh charged. Strickland met him with a rolling flatliner into a brainbuster for 2. House call kick connects. Strickland heads up top, and the Swerve stomp connects off the top rope. Swerve then pinned Roosh to win the match and another 3 points. A great match and a must-win for Swerve here coming into tonight. Keeps him alive in the tournament. And at this point in the show, that now knotted him up with Moxley at 12 points. And so, as they said here, the scenarios now play out like this. If Moxley were to win later in the show, or if his match with Jay White were to end in a draw, then the Gold League final next week on Dynamite would be Moxley against Swerve one-on-one. It would be a rematch from last week. If Jay White were to beat Jon Moxley, then we would have a three-way tie. We would have a three-way tie, 12 points apiece for Swerve, Moxley, and for Jay White. So that was the scenario that we were faced with heading into the main event. But a very good opener. I enjoyed the match, and again, no surprise there. You know, Swerve getting the rebound after the loss last week. It had to happen. Now, after a commercial break, Chris Jericho was backstage with a microphone in his hand, and he sounded somber. He announced that Kenny Omega was hospitalized with a bout of diverticulitis, which, if you missed it, for those of you who did not see the news, Omega posted about it on Twitter the other day from his hospital bed. He has been sick for a few weeks. They did not know how sick, and he got sick enough that after Dynamite last week, he was taken to the hospital. And it was at the hospital that they diagnosed him with symptoms of diverticulitis, which is no fun. And diverticulitis is potentially life-threatening if it's not caught soon enough and treated properly. So it's a serious situation. And Jericho said that Omega is now out of AEW indefinitely. He said they don't know how long that's going to be for, but it does affect the Golden Jets against Ricky Starks and Big Bill for the tag team titles at World's End. That match is now off. Jericho said while they decide what to do, the most important thing is Omega's health. He said everybody is pulling for Kenny. You could hear the fans in the arena. They started chanting for Omega. Jericho paused. He said, I knew you guys were going to do that. And so at least we know the promo was live. This was not a pre-recorded promo. And so he said he would be waiting for Omega once he comes back. He delivered Omega's closing line, the good night, goodbye. He said, though, it is only goodbye for now. So, to the point, classy statement. There were no ambushes. There were no interruptions. You know, they had Jericho go and let the people know what was going on. Unfortunately, Omega is going to be out for a while. And the most important thing is obviously the man's health. A tag team title match at the pay-per-view isn't important. Who gives a shit? When he's all healed up and he's ready, whether it takes 3 weeks or 3 months, then they can resume the story and they can have their tag team title match. So what I presume was going to happen at World's End is we were probably going to get new tag team champions. And then they would have transitioned into Jericho and Omega defending against Takeshita and Powerhouse Hobbs, because otherwise, I have no idea why Takeshita and Hobbs have been teaming recently, unless they were getting them prepped for a tag title match against the two men they beat. Takeshita has beaten Omega. Hobbs squashed Jericho on TV. So I figured they were going to win the tag team titles. When the time comes for them to defend against the Callis family, that's when we get the Young Bucks return. They're keeping the Young Bucks, I think, off TV, getting ready for a heel turn. They would have probably ended up costing Jericho and Omega the belts. And Jericho and Omega would then go on to feud further with the Bucks. That, I think, is the direction things were headed in. Everything is up in the air now, and so, you know what? They can keep the Bucks out until Kenny is ready to come back. No rush. No rush. In our second Continental Classic match of the night, we had Mark Briscoe against Jay Lethal. The two men winless in this tournament. Oh, the Judgment Day. Bobbert reviews with the $32. And the Judgment Day, not only does the Judgment Day rule Raw, but they rule Dynamite as well. Hate it. Hate it. Thank you, Bobbert. The Judgment Day have a lot more wins than these two men do. They showed highlights of Mark's first ever match on Dynamite, which was only in January of this year. He had never appeared on the show prior to that. We all know the reasons why. It's ridiculous. But his first match on Dynamite was right after his brother passed away, and it was against Jay Lethal, who was very good friends with Jay, wrestled Jay countless times, very close to Mark as well. So these two were very familiar with each other. And we got a short blackout early on in this match. Lasted about 10 seconds. The second time that this happened on the show tonight, where the logos were on the screen, but the feed just went black. for an extended period of time, 10, 15 seconds. The first time it felt like 20 seconds, which, again, dead air on television or radio, 10 seconds is like an eternity. I remember that even from my days when I was in college. I worked at the radio station. And that was one of the biggest things that they impressed upon us, is that dead air is your enemy. Actually, in radio, I don't know how it is on TV, but the way it is, or the way it used to be in radio, is after a certain amount of dead air, you could be fined by the FCC. So you never want there to be dead air. That is something that you do not want. See? No fun. Nobody wants dead air. See, I just did that to show you. So anyway, what my point is this. We got a short blackout, and if this is not tied into the devil stuff, then maybe it is. I don't think it is. But honestly, even if it is, it's stupid. Okay? Whether or not it's tied into the devil stuff, it's ridiculous, because this is the second time on this show that this happened. This is not the first week that this has happened. There have been other weeks where you have these random blackouts during the show. Now, I don't know if it's a TNT issue on their end or if it's an AEW issue. At the end of the day, regardless, it's an AEW issue, okay? Because they're the ones that are being affected by this, and they're the ones that are being blamed for it. So I don't know what's going on. And if it is tied into the devil stuff, stop. Very dumb. Eventually, the feed came back. Lethal hit an early suicide dive and then went back to the apron. He did the Fargo strut. Not the Jarrett strut. It's the Fargo strut. Lethal went for another suicide dive. Briscoe, though, blocked it and suplexed him outside. Briscoe went to the apron. He dropped a cactus elbow, heading into a picture-in-picture. Lethal went up top for an elbow drop, but Briscoe cut him off on the ropes, and Lethal knocked Briscoe down. Then he went to the other corner. Briscoe punched him, though, and he fell to the floor. Mark set up a chair inside the ring. He ran the ropes, and Sabu style, he launched himself using the chair over the ropes into a flip dive onto the floor. Back inside, Lethal came back. He put Briscoe in a torture rack and nailed a rolling senton. Lethal followed that up with a top rope elbow drop for a near fall. Lethal went for a lethal injection. Briscoe avoided it, and Mark hit a fisherman buster for a near fall. We had Mark hitting a rolling senton. He went for Froggy Bow. Jay Lethal, though, got his knees up. Briscoe avoided another lethal injection attempt, but this time Lethal connected on a Jay Driller. He got a very close near fall. Lethal wanted a lethal injection. Boy, he loves that fucking move, doesn't he? Tried again for the lethal injection. Briscoe countered into a burning hammer. Man, I still remember the burning hammer. I want to say it was Brian Kendrick that he used on Kota Ibushi in the Cruiserweight Classic. It was so many years ago at this point. Every time I think of the burning hammer, it's the first thing I think of. I think of Bryan Danielson on commentary, just losing his mind on that burning hammer. So he hit a burning hammer, and then Briscoe finished Lethal off with a Jay Driller proper to win his very first match of the tournament. He picks up his first points. He finally has points on the board. Hallelujah. Fans gave him a standing ovation, a well-deserved standing ovation for both these guys. After the match, both men from their knees came face-to-face in the ring. Mark put his hand out. Lethal accepted. They shook hands. So they were adhering to the code of honor. These men had nothing to fight for coming into this show. They had nothing to fight for but pride, right? They were already bounced. They were already mathematically eliminated. They were thoroughly embarrassed. Not that Mark Briscoe has anything to be embarrassed about. He's been having some of the best matches in the entire tournament. But just in terms of when you rank these guys, right, it's embarrassing when you have no points on the board, right? Daniel Garcia, same thing over in the Blue League. So they had nothing to fight for but pride. And I figured Briscoe was going to win it. They were saving a nice feel-good win for him at the end. Plus, it looks like they may be doing an angle where Lethal breaks away from the Jarrett faction. We'll see how that goes. But this was a hell of a match for them to go out on here. I thought this was an excellent match, and it continued a streak of excellent matches for Mark Briscoe in this tournament. Damn near every match that he has been a part of, right? The fans have been up for it. It's been great. There's been some dramatic near falls. He may not have won very many matches, but I think he's put together a pretty impressive body of work here in this tournament. So he certainly, in kayfabe or otherwise, he certainly has nothing to be ashamed of. Now, they aired footage of MJF being inducted into the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame on Monday. That's where I was. I was there for the ceremony. It was in Commack, New York, out on Long Island. Again, inducted into a Hall of Fame at the age of 27. That doesn't happen very often. One of the questions that I was going to ask him, and I planned to ask him, and I didn't have a chance to because I just was so worried about running out of time, so I cut out a bunch of stuff. But, on the Hall of Fame subject, there's a bunch of big names in that Hall of Fame. You got Sandy Koufax is in that Hall of Fame, one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived. Goldberg is in the Hall of Fame, Goldberg is in the Hall of Fame, and now MJF is in there, but there's somebody else in the Hall of Fame as well. Interesting little factoid for those who may not know. His great-great-uncle, Benny Friedman, is also in that Hall of Fame, and Benny Friedman is also in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He played for the New York Giants in the early years of that franchise, and wasn't just a good player. I mean, he was a great player. If you look up some statistics and facts about him, it's very interesting. So he comes from the same bloodline, and now he gets to be in the same Hall of Fame with his great-great-uncle, which is very cool. So anyway, that's where he was on Monday, being honored in that ceremony. That's where I had the chance to talk to him. And again, cheap plug, if you didn't see it, my interview with him is currently up on YouTube. So right here on this channel, so you can go check that out. We got another Wardlow vignette. Speaking of MJF, he was talking about MJF. He says, "This has always been a battle between good and evil." He said, "Max, the clock is ticking." He says, "We're coming closer and closer to your world ending. We've seen you run. We've seen you cry. We've seen you weak." I thought he was lapsing into another children's story like Nakamura was talking about the American Nightmare. What was it? The American Nightmare Before Christmas on Monday. I lapsed into verse during my review. I thought Wardlow was about to do the same. Said, "Soon the world will see you broken. The payment for your sins cannot be denied any longer, and I will be the one to bring the devil to his knees." Samoa Joe was out to the ring first. MJF was yet to come. A very pro-Joe crowd here in Oklahoma City. Joe also got a new haircut. He's mostly bald, but a little bit of stubble. Looked a little weird. Anyway, fresh cut here for Samoa Joe. He said he came here seeking answers yet again. He was seeking answers last week, but maybe he wasn't asking the right people. Roderick Strong may be the dimmest bulb in the box, but he brings up a good point. Week after week, we are assaulted by the devil, and our world champion is not the only victim. For some odd reason, he said, Hangman Adam Page was a victim. And then we think back to the malicious, quote-unquote, malicious attack on our world champion, and it seems like every time the devil attacks somebody, we get footage of them doing the deed. But not the case with MJF. With MJF, we cut to the back, and what did we see? He was splattered on the ground. We didn't actually see him get attacked. We only saw the aftermath. We saw the broken beer bottle by his head. So he demanded MJF come out to the ring to answer some questions. And the new Hall of Famer himself made his way out to the ring. And he also got MJF chants, so the people were, they were behind him as well. Although it was, I think, a slightly more pro-Joe crowd. He said, "Joey Samoa, let me get this straight. You're accusing me of being the man behind the mask, correct?" And Joe said, "Correct." And MJF said, "Well, that's very interesting because I recall you saying that you were going to protect me going into our main event at World's End for the world title. Matter of fact, Joe said verbatim, 'From henceforth, MJF, you are my property.'" All of a sudden, the fans lapse into Go So Joe chants. Go So Joe. They're so lazy they can't even spell out the man's name. Go So Joe. MJF kept going. He said, so, no show, Joe. It's become clear that you care as much about your property as you do about your diet. But since we're throwing accusations around, he gets jumped in the back, and the goons surround the ring, but I don't recall them laying a finger on you. So let's see, I don't like you, now I don't trust you, so why am I waiting until World's End when I can end your world right now? And MJF threw the mic down, he ripped off the Burberry scarf, he took off the Burberry belt from around his waist, he removed his sport coat, he gave Joe a shove. But before Joe could retaliate, he went after the Devil's masked men, who at that exact moment hit the ring. There were tons of them. I don't even know how many of them there were. And Joe and MJF fought them off. More masked men now come out of the crowd, and they surrounded the ring. The lights went out. The Devil appeared briefly. It's the same clip, the same brief clip of the guy in the Devil mask, and then they take the clip down. And then we got the written messages on the screen, which said, where can you go? Who can you trust? Next week, will you accept a challenge for your ROH Tag Team Championship? Are you a hero, Max? MJF said he knows what Joe is going to say, but he made a promise to his best friend that he would defend those tag team titles no matter what until he comes back. And Samoa Joe grabs the microphone out of his hand and he says, we accept. He says, it seems the best way to handle a devil is with our bare hands. And next week, we beat his boys' asses. And Joe stormed out of the ring. MJF looked stunned, but he was pumped for the challenge. I have to say, the number of masked men here was just, it wasn't even bordering on overkill. It was complete overkill. There were so many of them. They were reproducing like rats. So like before, it's like, all right, we count 4, 5 masked men and, you know, they'll be revealed maybe as Roddy and the King. Like you can name who it might be. Here, there were like 20 of them. I mean, it's ridiculous. But again, it's a risky thing to advertise a match that may not happen because we've already been down this road before. We were supposed to get a match, and that's when they did the angle where MJF got attacked and the match never happened. And I don't know that you want to be doing that again. But at the same time, there's no reason for MJF to step into the ring before the pay-per-view because he does have a legitimate injury. You know, as he told me during our interview, the torn labrum with the arm, you know, he can't even go north to south. He can't get his arm up above his head. So you could always protect him in a tag team match. Doesn't have to do a lot. You could let Joe do most of the work. But again, it's a risk if he's going to get in there and actually wrestle. And people can wrestle on a torn labrum. But again, 3 days before the pay-per-view, I just don't see the point. So we'll see. But I was thinking, okay, you know, if they don't do the match, right? If that is the plan, let's say, we inch closer to World's End, and we're going to get this devil reveal. I've always felt like World's End is going to be where the reveal happens. I feel like if this goes on for that much longer, I mean, whatever steam this angle has left is going to be completely gone. Because it's already losing steam. Look, Adam Cole getting hurt was the worst thing that could have happened. They had a good thing going with MJF and Adam Cole. Where it was going to go, which one of them was going to turn on the other first, right? I mean, who knows now what the original plan was going to be. Him getting hurt was a completely freak accident. And it completely fucked everything up. Clearly. And so they had to pivot in a different direction. I'm not sure we have a devil angle, frankly, if Adam Cole doesn't get hurt at Grand Slam. So this has been going on now for about 3 months. World's End is being built up like you feel like there's going to be a major angle, maybe even a title change on that show. Whether we get the title change or not, we need to get the devil reveal. That is not going to be the end of the story. It's the end of one chapter of the story. And once we know what this guy is up against, we can move to the next chapter of the story. But if they continue to drag this out, it's going to lose whatever steam it may have left. So I think the reveal has to happen. There has to be some big angle they shoot to move this along at World's End. And you got Wardlow, who again is dropping these teases every single week about World's End and the devil and I'm going to end your world. So there's a tie in there somehow. Clearly he's going to be involved. I'm not saying that Wardlow is necessarily the devil, but I absolutely believe that he is going to be tied into this in some way. And maybe he will be the one responsible for screwing MJF out of the AEW World Championship. It is not out of the realm of possibility that Samoa Joe may get a token run with the title. And then they transition the belt to either somebody else while this story plays out with MJF, or MJF beats him and gets the belt right back. Because I don't want to see MJF lose the title before he has a chance to step into the ring with Swerve. And I'm going to be getting to that here in a little bit. That's the money match right there. So if they do take the title off of him briefly and then get it back on him, as long as it gets back on him before they get to the eventual match between him and Swerve, because that is a world title pay-per-view main event for Revolution, for Double or Nothing, I mean, whatever show that they have that in mind for, that is a pay-per-view main event for that championship. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Renee was backstage with Orange Cassidy, Chris Statlander, Rocky Romero, and Trent Beretta. They mentioned that Chuck Taylor is out hurt. So she asked Trent and Rocky what the future looks like for the two of them as we head in here to the new year. And Rocky said he was just looking for new international opportunities and he wants to bring gold around his waist. And Orange Cassidy interrupted and said, "Okay, fine, I'll see you on Friday, Rocky." And he walked off. And Romero looked stunned, like that's not what he meant, but he just fell ass backwards into an international title match on Rampage this Friday. Timeless Tony Storm was out next. One of my great pleasures here on this show. Timeless Tony Storm, and Luther was with her. She made her way out on stage. She was taking a seat with the announcers. She said Taz was her favorite landlord because she hears they call him the human duplex machine. God bless this woman. God bless Tony Storm. How great is Tony Storm? We had Saraya against Riho, with the winner to challenge Tony for her women's world title at World's End. Ruby Soho was shown in the back watching the match on a screen as Riho got the early takedown into the ropes and she wanted the 619, but Saraya took a powder outside the ring. Riho met her outside with multiple tilt-a-whirl head scissors all around ringside until Saraya hid behind a security guard. And that was enough to get a cheap shot in, and Saraya swung Riho repeatedly into the barricade. You like that, huh? The human duplex machine? It's so, like anybody else says that, like if I say that, right, you roll your eyes. But if she says it, it's funny, it works. So it was all Saraya during the commercial before Riho hit a fourth head scissors, this time followed that up with a 619 and a top rope crossbody. She didn't get all of it. This is the kind of spot where that expression was tailor-made because she really didn't get all of it, but she didn't miss it completely either. So she got part of it when she took down Saraya. Riho went up top. Saraya met her with a super kick in midair. Riho came back and connected with the top rope double stomp, followed by the charging double knees, and she picked up the win. They showed a smiling Ruby backstage. Very happy with the outcome of this match. Luther carried Tony Storm from the stage down to the ring. She got into the ring to confront Riho. And Riho attacked her with forearms. She hit her with a 619. As Tony was begging off, Mariah May showed up with the women's world title, and when Riho turned around, Mariah May blasted her with the championship, and Luther carried Tony Storm away. Tony was acting like she had no idea who this woman was. She had no idea who Mariah May was, even though she's been hanging around her for like a month now. She acted like she had no clue who this woman was, as Mariah was in the ring, like looking to her for approval, but Tony was like, I don't know who this person is. Riho winning was the obvious outcome, right? From the moment she came back a few weeks ago, what did she do? She was going after Toni Storm, so of course she was going to win this match. And Tony's going to beat her at World's End, and then she's going to move on to the next. How many more days until we get Jamie Hayter back, huh? Soon. Very, very soon. On stage, Tony Schiavone got up from the desk, and he had a piece of paper. He said that he had a prepared statement from our esteemed TNT champion, Christian Cage, that he must read. Oklahoma City, sit down, shut your mouths, and show some respect while Tony Schiavone conducts my business. After Christian's career-defining victory against Adam Copeland, he took his prodigy Nick Wayne, he says, on a well-deserved vacation. Cage said that he will make his highly anticipated return on Collision this coming Saturday, and he will address Copeland's challenge to a no disqualification match at World's End for the TNT title. And at the very end of the letter, they actually played Christian's music. Despite the fact that he was not actually there, they played his music anyway. Now, all of a sudden, Excalibur noted there was some kind of disturbance going on in the back. And they cut to the backstage area, and we saw MJF and Samoa Joe, and they were bickering in the hallway about something. And so MJF went to go walk away, and Samoa Joe went into whatever dressing room was there. Either that or he was hiding behind the corner. But he was supposedly walking into the dressing room. MJF takes a few steps down the hall, and he looks down on the ground, and he finds a black mask, a black ski mask. And then he looks up, and it just so happens that the mask is laying outside the Mogul Embassy dressing room. So he knocks on the door. Prince Nana answers the door. MJF grabs him by the collar, pulls him out, slams him up against the wall, and he's demanding answers. Swerve Strickland walks out of the locker room, and Nana just bails back inside. So now we have MJF and we have Swerve in the hallway. They come face to face. Strickland said it's nice to finally see MJF eye to eye. He feels like MJF has been ducking him ever since he showed up here in AEW. And MJF mocked his entrance music. He did the whole doo-doo. Swerve, swerve. I'll do. Man, I got to tell you, when we had Swerve in House of Glory at the beginning of the month, I was on commentary, so I wasn't on stage, but somebody was able to shoot video of his entrance from behind him and Nana as they came out. And we put it on our social media, and it kind of went viral there. Like, it got a ton of play. Just this great shot. You see them in the foreground and all around them, because we have the ramp that goes to the ring. Just the place was packed. And Nana's doing the dance, and everybody in the crowd is doing the dance, and everyone's losing their mind. And we're on commentary, and we're just laying out, right? We're just kind of absorbing the moment, because sometimes that's what you got to do. You just got to let the moment play itself out. But it was just so electric in that building. And that music has a lot to do with it. So I just wanted to give a shout out to his theme music, because that's a very big part of the package when Swerve comes out. People just love that song, and they love doing that dance. So MJF was mocking the song and said, we actually have a long history together, you and me. Lots of long car rides together as we were making names for ourselves on the independent scene. And now he's proud of what Swerve is doing in AEW. And MJF said that he hasn't been ducking Swerve. He says there are levels to this shit, and you're just not on mine. Strickland said that those car rides were magical because MJF was a great chauffeur for him. He got a lot of sleep in those cars with MJF as they were riding around all up and down the road. Then he brings up MJF's history with William Regal, a story that MJF has told about the tryout with WWE many years ago that he was trying for. And then he had a money line here. First, he said that he's turned into a whiny bitch. This is the whiny bitch that we see today. But the money line was, MJF does tryouts. Swerve signs contracts. I love that line. The last person to cross Swerve, he said, was hung by his neck with a chain in front of 13,000 people. MJF said that he's proud of Swerve for getting better at talking. That was a solid monologue. But all the talking about Hangman is almost to the point of just being excessive. And he told Swerve to watch his mouth when he's using his Flava Flav hand-me-down grills when talking about him. Says it's interesting that Strickland constantly talks about Hangman Page and wanting an AEW World title shot. So when Page gets taken out, the one who has the most to gain is Swerve. And so he said, well, maybe Swerve is the devil. And he said that he's the big bad wolf and he'll blow down Swerve's house. And if MJF feels like it, he'll break both of Strickland's arms so he can always swerve when he drives. Swerve said he's not the devil he's looking for, but if he keeps waving the AEW title in his face, he will bring Max hell. And at that point, the Mogul Embassy opened the door. They all stared down MJF. Samoa Joe walked in. Joe shows up and he says, I hate to interrupt, but me and my associate, we have some business to take care of. And they walked off. And Nana told Swerve, he forgot to tell him something about Collision, something that happened on Collision. And they all went back into the locker room. So let's back up a little bit here. So the devil is trying to frame Swerve by placing the ski mask on the ground in front of the Mogul Embassy office there. So if history is any indication, Swerve better have eyes in the back of his head. This whole segment was fantastic. The back and forth between these two, both of them were great. Whatever MJF was giving him, Swerve gave it right back to him. And watching the two of them together, I had a similar feeling watching Swerve and Hangman, because Hangman is an AEW original, right? Obviously, he worked Ring of Honor and New Japan prior to coming to AEW, but he was never a WWE guy. He was never, he really made his name nationally working for AEW. He's an AEW original. And Swerve has obviously exploded, and it was refreshing to see the two of them have a program together, because for so long it just felt like they didn't know what to do with Swerve, or they were afraid to pull the trigger with him. I still don't know why we never got the Swerve Keith Lee match. I mean, months and months and months ago. That's still a mystery to me, unless there were health reasons for that. I don't know. But finally, Swerve found his footing, and it felt like a fresh match. And the two of them went out there. They're the Wrestle Dream match, and then, of course, the Texas Death match. They had fucking amazing matches. Two of the best matches all year, those two had. MJF and Swerve can take that to the next level in 2024. That, again, it's two guys that are not washed up. It's not older veterans who shouldn't be fighting for the championship. It's not, ex-WWE guys. I mean, Swerve, technically, you could say, but I mean, fuck's sake. I mean, how long was he on the main roster for? They never gave him a chance, right? I don't consider him an ex-WWE guy. Give me a break. He was an ex-NXT guy, not a WWE main roster guy. So to put the two of them in the ring together, it's a fresh match between two young guys on the roster. But it's two guys who can deliver on the microphone as well as in the ring. You could take these two and put them face to face like they did here in a hallway backstage, and it's gold. Now imagine the two of them going out there on live television in the middle of the ring and playing off the crowd and digging into each other. That's what I want to see. This is the match right here. This should be your Revolution main event. Some people think Sting will be in the main event at Revolution just because it's his retirement match. Just because he's retiring on the show doesn't mean that that's going to be the final match on the show. Like, at no point did I actually think in my mind, like, Sting is going to close out the show. I guess it's possible. But, like, legitimately, the thought never crossed my mind. I just figured it would be a match on the show. I would still close out with a world title match, especially if that's going to be the match. And it really should be. Which begs the question, then, what are they going to do with Swerve in the Continental Classic? Because is he going to win the tournament and win the Triple Crown and then just end up challenging MJF anyway? I mean, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of putting the Triple Crown on somebody. If the point is to have them go around and defend it in different promotions, why is this guy going to go on and challenge for the AEW World title? He's already got the Triple Crown. It would almost be better if he didn't win the tournament. If the idea, I'd rather have Swerve lose in the Continental Classic and go headline Revolution for the AEW World title than have him win the entire tournament and win the Triple Crown. The Triple Crown means nothing to me. Now, maybe a year from now, they will have done a tremendous job of making this Triple Crown mean something, but right now, to me, it doesn't even exist. It means nothing to me. I would much rather see this guy enter into a program early next year with MJF. Let's see those two go at it. That's the match I want to see. And this was only a taste of it. This was the first seed planted for what should be your Revolution main event. Double or Nothing is in May. It's too far away. Revolution. But you got Wardlow. And so if MJF survives World's End, they would probably go to him and Wardlow first. If it's me, though, man, I'm not putting that match off. I'd like to see that at Revolution. But this was great. This was the best thing on the entire show right here. And we had 3 really strong tournament matches, but this right here is what piqued my interest. Now we had Roderick Strong one-on-one against Komander. And Komander tried to use his speed early on. Roddy was there to meet him with a charging boot and some chops. Komander fought back, hit a series of takedowns, and Roddy was able to sucker Komander in with a stiff boot to the midsection. Dished out some backbreakers. Of course, pleased Taz. Komander was able to send Roddy tumbling outside during the picture-in-picture break. Roddy got control back pretty quickly. So there were a lot of crazy spots here from Komander. Komander had this crowd in the palm of his hand. He was hitting all kinds of big moves, and people were going nuts for it. He wanted the rope walk shooting star. Matt Taven and Mike Bennett pulled Roddy out to the floor. Komander didn't give a shit, and he delivered the move anyway. Huge moonsault onto the Kingdom and Roddy before going back inside. And Roddy hit a pumping knee on Komander as he was flying through midair. This led to the end of Heartache, and that gave Roddy the win. This end of Heartache, man, I mean, he'll pick a guy up and he'll just suplex him like the X-Plex, peek down X-Plex into the air and drop him across his knee. Komander did a whole flip, because Komander is 150 pounds? He's probably more than that, but he's like 150 pounds. He did a complete flip, and basically it ended up being a code breaker, and then Roddy pinned him. So that was a hell of a finish. After the match was over, Taven and Bennett, they put the neck brace back on Roddy, and they had all these signs that said MJF is the devil. And they went around the ringside area, and they were taping them to the barricade. And so Renee joined Roddy in the ring for an interview. And she asked, "What is going on? What are you guys trying to prove here?" And Roddy said, "Renee!" And then he called for Samoa Joe. Wants Samoa Joe to listen to him. He says it's obvious that MJF is the devil. It's time for Joe to wake up. Renee said that wouldn't Joe have listened to him if he believed him? And he yelled at her that Joe is his best friend by proxy. I said Renee as loud as I could say it. If I said Renee as loud as he says it, I'll wake up the whole neighborhood. But yes, that's what he does. He screams people's names. That's his gimmick now. It's gotten over. I kind of get a kick out of it when he calls him Samoa instead of calling him Joe. It's like calling the Undertaker the. Right? The main event was also our 3rd Gold League match of the night. It was Jon Moxley taking on Switchblade Jay White. Again, their first match since Jay White beat Moxley in the G1 Climax back in 2019. Jim Ross came out to join the announcers at the booth on stage before the match started. It was good to see JR because I'm sure he's been working very hard and hoping to be able to make this show. They were in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma is his home. Even though he has a home now in Jacksonville, I think he's spending most of his time these days in Jacksonville. But he's from Oklahoma. You know, he still has a home in Oklahoma. He's an Okie, right? Boomer Sooner. That's Jim Ross. So I'm sure it was very important to him to make it back for this show. I don't know if he's back every week now, but for tonight, he was able to be there. He's had a rough go. He had some skin cancer issues, for those who don't know, and he had radiation therapy on his leg. And the cancer is gone. It worked, but radiation is a bitch, and it burns. And it could take a long time for those wounds to heal. He's posted some pretty graphic photos on social media of what his leg looks like. And one of the things that does not help, it actually makes it worse and it hurts a lot, is when you fly. With a wound like that, it's painful for him to fly. So he hasn't been traveling. Tony Khan said, look, you got to get well, take all the time you need, and we'll be here when you're ready to come back. And I don't know that he's fully healed yet, but he was well enough to be at the show tonight. And he sounded like a man refreshed on commentary. I mean, he got the bass back in his voice. There were moments during this match, they came back from the final commercial break, and he sounded like the Jim Ross of old there for a few seconds. So he sounded great. I'm sure, again, he's been preparing for this, and he was motivated to go out there and do the best job he could. I have no issue with them trotting him out for main events like this. He does not need to be calling full shows. I'm not even sure he wants to. We don't need him doing full shows. If they want to trot him out for a special match here and there in a main event, I think that's the way to use Jim Ross. It's almost like at these companies when they have like a chairman emeritus, like that's kind of him. He's like, that's his position on commentary, basically. So it was good to see him. Hopefully he's doing better and healing well. The Jay White wanted to talk some shit. Moxley just slapped on a quick rear naked choke and transitioned into the anvil elbows. White avoided a paradigm shift, but he could not dodge a pile driver. You can dodge a pile driver, you could dodge a wrench. And Rip Torn say that once. Both men went to the floor. White went after Moxley's knee. Took control back inside. White avoided a charging Moxley in the corner and then clipped his knee from behind. Excalibur said that Moxley was saying something to the referee. He was, I think, telling the referee, my knee, my knee. And JR was asking if the referee might stop the match. White knocked Moxley off the apron, sent him into the barricade. That took us into the final picture-in-picture break of the show. There was a fan in the front row who held up a sign that said, spoiler, Mox is going to bleed. Well, that fan was wrong. Of all the nights, we just had Moxley at Final Battle the other night. He was bleeding. Not tonight. No blood from Jon Moxley tonight. He no-sold White's elbow strikes. He dropped Jay with one of his own. Jay ended up on the floor. He got nailed with a suicide dive. White battled back. He dumped Moxley on top of the ring steps chest first. And Moxley's knee also landed on the steps in the process. Jay White went to go grab a chair. And Bryce Remsburg was right there to confront him about it, got in his face before he could use it. So White instead took the chair and slid it into the ring all the way to the far side. Bryce gets into the ring to go grab the chair to dispose of it. When he does so, Jay White grabs a second chair. And he smashes Moxley in the back of the knee with the chair. He gets back in the ring, and Jay White is more than happy to take a count-out win here. Moxley, though, makes it back in before the 10 count. And White tried for Blade Runner. Moxley countered into a paradigm shift and covers. White kicks out. Moxley catches Jay with a running knee strike, covers him, and again, Jay White kicks out. Then we got a slugfest. Moxley, out of nowhere, drops him with a cutter. White comes back, though, with a nasty sleeper suplex, stumped him right on his head, and then a Uranagi. Then the Kiwi Crusher, only gets a 2 count. White sets up for Blade Runner, but he decides on a second sleeper suplex instead. Moxley pops right back up. He fires back with a lariat. Blade Runner gets blocked into a short arm lariat. Moxley connects on a stomp. Very Seth Rollins-esque. You could take the man out of the Shield, but you cannot take the Shield out of the man. Although it looks very unlikely we're going to have a Shield reunion anytime in the next 10 years. Moxley is signed until 2027 with this company. Rollins has a contract coming up in June. He's not going anywhere. And Roman Reigns is lounging out on his island somewhere. Long live the Shield. So right at the 15-minute call from Justin Roberts, Moxley tries for a Death Rider, but White slips out and finally hits the Blade Runner, and he pins Jon Moxley clean in the middle of the ring. Even though he used a chair on his knee earlier, the finish was clean. He didn't hook the tights. He didn't hit him with a foreign object. He pins Jon Moxley, which is something that we certainly have not seen. And that moves Jay White to 12 points in the Gold League. That means we end with a three-way tie between Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland, and Jay White, which means that next Wednesday it is a triple threat match to decide the winner of the Gold League. And we're also going to be getting the Blue League semifinal next Wednesday. Those two winners will then meet in the finals of the tournament at World's End. And that will be for the Triple Crown. We still have not seen what this new title looks like. Again, it's 3 titles that are being effectively, well, not really unified per se, but got the Ring of Honor World title. We have the New Japan Strong Openweight title and a brand new Continental title. Obviously, they are holding off on the reveal until World's End. Swerve's music hits, and he walks out on stage. Jay White, I wish I could have gifted. Jay White starts doing the Nana dance. He starts doing the Prince Nana dance in the ring, which was hilarious. Moxley gets up, and White takes him out again, takes out the knee, chops him back down to the mat, and then he lapses back into the Nana. He's just putting his arm in the air, and he's doing the Prince Nana dance as they go off the air. I have no idea how Swerve didn't start cracking up. And that's how they went off the air. That was great. I thought the match was very good, but I actually thought it was the weakest of the 3 matches all night long, even though it had the most surprising outcome, because I didn't think Jay White was going to get a pinfall win over Jon Moxley. I thought maybe this would be the elusive time limit draw that we still haven't gotten. But now he pinned him right in the middle of the ring. And so, interesting to note, with these 3 men that are now in the triple threat next week, each one of the men in next week's 3-way has beaten one of their opponents from the match next week and lost to the other one. So Moxley has pinned Swerve, Swerve has pinned Jay, Jay has pinned Moxley, and now it comes down to next Wednesday. And that's going to be one hell of a fucking main event right there. You put those 3 guys in the ring together, that's going to be a hell of a main event on next week's show. Next week's show, by the way, I think is their New Year's Smash. This was the Holiday Bash edition. Next week, it's New Year's Smash. So what are we looking at here? At the beginning of all this, my prediction was we get a Bryan Danielson, Swerve Strickland final in the Continental Classic. And I'm still going to stick with that prediction, but there is the chance, and I put this out there is the chance that we get Bryan Danielson against Switchblade Jay White, which again would be an incredible match at the pay-per-view. And I could see either one of those men winning. Jay White winning? If Jay White were to win the Triple Crown, think about this, right? The whole point of the Triple Crown, besides the fact that Tony Khan, he's a huge mark for Japanese wrestling, and he remembers the old Triple Crown, and he wants to create an American version of that. So he's living out his fantasy. Besides that, though, if Jay White were to win the Triple Crown, the whole point is that the title would be defended cross-promotion. So it could be defended in AEW, it could be defended in Ring of Honor, it could be defended in New Japan. It could be defended on the independent scene. Jay White, when he left New Japan, I believe the stipulation was that he was never again allowed to wrestle, I think, for New Japan. I forgot exactly the wording of the stipulation. But if Jay White were to win the title in AEW, he could probably defend it in New Japan. Maybe that's a loophole where he's technically under contract to AEW, right? He doesn't work for New Japan. But that could be their way maybe of getting him back in a New Japan ring and doing matches for New Japan, which, is certainly a possibility. So Jay White winning is a very real possibility. So what would happen then in that scenario with Swerve? Well, I mentioned earlier that the ski mask, the devil's mask, not the devil mask, but the ski mask, was outside the Mogul Embassy locker room. We saw what happened to Hangman. We saw what happened to the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. All these people have been beaten up by the devil and his men. Swerve has to watch out. One of the rules of this tournament has been no outside interference allowed. Even people who have managers are not allowed to have them down at ringside. That's why you never saw Prince Nana go down to the ring with Swerve for any of these matches. Well, in a triple threat match, there are no disqualifications. So if somebody were to interfere in the match next week, who are you going to disqualify? Right? There are no disqualifications. Anything goes. There has to be a winner. You can't DQ somebody in a three-way match, typically. Could always change the rules, I suppose, and bounce that person and turn it into a singles match. That's not how a three-way match works, though. I say that because if the Devil and his henchmen were to get involved here, they could help eliminate Swerve from the picture. Take Swerve out, and that spares Swerve the loss, taking the pinfall loss, let's say, in that match, takes him out of the equation. And then it leaves Jay White to wrestle Jon Moxley, and Jay White can win the match. So again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a possibility to watch out for if they didn't want Swerve to go to the finals. I would have no issue with Swerve going to the finals and losing to Bryan Danielson. Only if the idea was, we don't need him winning this because he's going to challenge for the world title in early 2024. Then I'm okay with it. If the idea is that he is not going to be challenging anytime soon for the AEW World title, well then, he could win the Triple Crown. Gives him something to do, gives him some claim to fame in the meantime. But again, I just don't see the point. He should be in the world title mix. I understand Tony Khan has his plans and they're teasing something with Wardlow, but Swerve really needs to be in that picture. So you give me the choice, I'm not bothering with the Triple Crown. I know what I'm doing with him at Revolution. You want to have Bryan Danielson win the Triple Crown? Not that he needs it. You want to have him win the Triple Crown? Look, you want to have Andrade win the Triple Crown. Andrade's still in this. Right? He's not mathematically eliminated. We'll see how the Blue League shakes out. I just can't imagine Bryan Danielson not having a match at World's End. So just another possibility to consider if Swerve were to come out on the losing end of things. That could be one way for them to get him out of there. Because this whole no interference or else you get disqualified rule, it just wouldn't apply in next week's match. Now, Collision coming up on Saturday has Danielson against Claudio in a Blue League match, Brody King against Daniel Garcia in a Blue League match, and Andrade taking on Eddie Kingston in a Continental Classic match. The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn are back. They're going to defend their trios titles against Top Flight and Action Andretti. Julia Hart and Sky Blue take on the returning Thunder Rosa and Abaddon. Thunder Rosa was on Collision this past weekend. She was doing commentary, Spanish commentary, and she came out to make the save for Abaddon. She has been out of the ring for something like 16 months. This woman basically had a broken back and had to forfeit her championship, and she has been dying to come back. It's been a long-ass time since this woman has been in the ring on TV, and it's good to have her back, so she'll make her in-ring return on Saturday, and that's, again, another addition to the women's division. And Keith Lee is going to be taking on Brian Cage on that show. I finally got around to watching the rest of Final Battle. I told you I would. I just wasn't going to do a formal review, but I wanted to watch the show. And a very good match with him on the pay-per-view. Thank you very much, Mr. KG Hunter in the chat. I appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. But him and Shane Taylor, they had a very good match on the show. The Jay Briscoe tribute match was wild and crazy. And I really enjoyed the women's match, too, with Athena defending against Billy Starks. I knew the finish going into it. I already knew who won. I feel like had I watched that match without knowing the finish, I would have been stunned. Because it just felt to me like, especially that being in the main event, and as long as Athena has been the champion for, and the announcers talking about how she loses this title, this could be her final match, in Ring of Honor. I'm like, well, finally, it's about time. I would have bet money on her losing that title. And she didn't. She's still the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion. And then when the match was over, Billy Starks and her just embraced. Athena said, I want you to be my minion. Because Billy was like, what do you want from me? I want you to be my minion. And they hugged, and that was it. So she lost, but she earned Athena's respect. Okay. I mean, I get she's very young. She only just graduated school, I think, last year. She's 19 years old. But I know they've been telling this story over a period of months, and it just felt tailor-made for a title change. And I was just like, wow, okay. Onward we go, I guess, with Athena in Ring of Honor. She's had a hell of a run there. I guess it's going to continue for a few more months. But that was your main event from Final Battle last week. Let's take a look at the Twitter poll. 74%, nearly 74% of you have given the show a thumbs up. 26% thumbs down. Get those votes in on Twitter. At Solomonster is my handle. You can go there and let me know what you thought of tonight's Holiday Bash episode of Dynamite. Always love hearing from you guys. Get some holiday music. Some holiday cheer going on here. Right, we're all in a very festive mood, aren't we? All right, let's get to your messages here. We're going to kick things off with Tuxedo T. Servo. Thank you, brother. Stop shaking your hand. You're freaking me out. Congrats on not just interviewing MJF, but knocking it out of the park. That was great to watch. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, my hand, so if you watch the interview, I have a way of doing it. I use my phone and a microphone that I attach to it. And so my hand, I was checking the levels on the phone. I wanted to make sure that he wasn't clipping. Because if the levels are red and they're going off, I pull the mic back a little bit. And I got yelled at. So there you go. That's what my hand was doing. Lady Fire Panda with the $20. Attention, at the end of the Super Chats, we are breaking out the liquor. I have a feeling some people didn't wait until the end of the stream, and they've already broken into the eggnog here. So, too late. Where are we, by the way? We're still what? Are we still 50 likes away from the gold tonight? Are we not going to do Be the Booker here on this Holiday Bash edition? Wow. It's not looking good. Very disappointing if we don't hit that goal. Jackie Fowler with the $25. I would like your advice. My fiance turns 30 in January, still looks 20. Kind of like me. He's 6 feet. Well, that's not me. We live in the UK. He's seriously considering becoming a wrestler. He wants to wrestle smart like Jake Roberts, not stupid like Ricochet. What are your thoughts? I didn't know that wrestling like Jake Roberts was like the smart way of wrestling. When did Jake Roberts become the poster boy for the smart way to wrestle? My advice is very simple. Find a reputable wrestling school. That's really where it all starts. Find a reputable wrestling school. Make sure you're willing to make the sacrifices you need to make, put the work in, and you'll know pretty quickly, I think, whether or not you're cut out for this or not. It's the best advice I can give. Fire Panda with the $50 Gunther bomb. That was before we went live tonight. Perfect devil unmasking. The devil comes out with all of his henchmen and pulls off the mask to reveal Tony Khan. Tony Khan says, "It's me, Maxwell. It was me all along." And we get JR on commentary. He says, "Oh, son of a bitch." This is perfect. Fire Panda, there's a reason why you are a mod and you are not a booker. Stick to what you're good at. Fire Panda also says, been saying this a lot tonight, and I will say it again. MJF making a Solomonster has no legs or pants reference proves that he watches the live. I do, in fact, have pants. I can confirm that I do, in fact, have pants. Fire Panda, thank you for that double hit right now. The Yatagaratsu Incorporated. a $10 super chat, getting an interview with the AEW champion and doing a kick-ass job at it. I don't say this lightly when I say you are an inspiration. God bless, and it is just the beginning for you. I'm glad you enjoyed the interview, and it's very kind of you to say thank you. I've done tons of interviews, just it's been a while. It's been a while, but the opportunity came up. We made it happen. I'm glad that we did. That's one I've been wanting to do for a while, and again, that was brief. I would love to have the chance to do it again a little bit longer, so we'll see. But again, if you didn't see it, it's up on the channel right now. It's very quick, less than 10 minutes, a little conversation between the two of us. Go check that out. Chris Manson, AEW World's End concludes the way Scary Movie did. Doofy being Roderick strong. Oz and Glorious, love the MJF interview. Thanks for bringing back Dream Machine. You're very welcome. Bobbert Reviews, thank you for the $32. Bobbert, Arabian Night, you think Sasha should go to AEW? Money-wise, she'll get paid regardless, but they have a whole crop of talent for her. WWE would just be rematches galore. I think that Sasha should go wherever she feels that she is going to be challenged and wherever she's going to be able to make the most money. Wherever she goes, Sasha Banks is going to make a lot of money, regardless of where she ends up. I would like to see Sasha Banks back in WWE under Triple H and not Vince McMahon. There are a ton of fresh opponents for her in AEW, but I think the best place for her is going to be back in that women's division in WWE. K-Bubs, I wonder if the new title for the Continental Classic will be Tony Khan's take on the Winged Eagle belt, given that the leagues are blue and gold. What are your thoughts? I'd love it, but I think you're reading a little too much into it, probably. But you know me, I mean, look over my shoulder. That would be fine with me. Arabian Night, does Tony Khan get too much flack with the women having one match per show when SmackDown does the same thing weekly? Raw has 3 hours, it helps showcase the women more. Yeah, I mean, look, SmackDown doesn't do a great job on most weeks either. It is a shorter show. But could there be more women's segments on Dynamite? Yes. I don't think the fact that it's 2 hours instead of 3, so, well, you know, they only have time for one. No, I mean, if they built up some really interesting stories in the women's division, or, you know, more than one, then you can make time for it. It's not just a matter of making time. What are you making time for? Like, I'm not interested in just sticking an obligatory women's match on there. There needs to be some kind of a story behind it. Who's involved, right? Who's wrestling? Why are they wrestling? What is the story coming out of this match? What is it leading to? Is it leading to a big pay-per-view match? And I just think he needs to do a better job of coming up with, you know, plans for some of the women who are not being utilized in that way. I think Timeless Toni Storm is great. Beyond that, you know, we'll see. If Thunder Rosa just came back, they could do something with her. I mentioned Jamie Hayter earlier. I look forward to getting her back, and hopefully she'll get pushed to the moon. Back in the world title picture when she comes back. Britt Baker's been missing for a few months, which I think has been good, frankly. I mean, she spent most of 2023 kind of in the background. But I feel like she was getting a lot of exposure there for a while. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to take a back seat for a while before they reintroduce her. But they could definitely be doing more with the ladies on Dynamite. It's a matter of coming up with interesting stories for them to be involved in. Wild Bird, Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, Robin Lays an Egg. Yes, the Batmobile lost its wheel and the Joker got away. Thank you, Wild Bird. Have you ever watched Bill Goldberg's movie called Santa's Sleigh? Add it to your watch list. I don't remember if I saw the full movie. I did see the opening scene where I think he kills a whole bunch of people. That kind of sticks with you when you see that. Ali, AEW deserves our love, not the hate. Devil Baker. I hope not. I don't know. I don't think I'd be a big fan of that. And Prince Vegeta 95 with the $9.99 saw a report on Facebook that apparently a decision was made 2 weeks ago for Roman Reigns to retain past Mania and surpass Hogan's run. The source was zero news. Why are you getting your news from Facebook? This is the problem, by the way, with our society in general, getting news from Facebook. That's a much bigger problem than just wrestling. Don't get your news from Facebook. Barry MK, if you've seen it, what do you think of Wrestling Bios reliving the war videos? I have not seen it, so I can't comment on it. And Samoan Fan 101, has A&E done a documentary on Vader yet? I don't believe so, no. I'm trying to think if any of the biography episodes they did covered Vader, but I don't think so. They've done Piper, they've done Austin, they've done Yokozuna. I think they did Savage. I don't think so, though. Ali, $3 super chat. Do you have any cross-promotional dream matches? Mine would be Vader against Gunther, Brett against Kurt Angle, and maybe Moxley against the younger Terry Funk. Mox and a younger Terry Funk would be pretty wild. Yeah, mine, I mean, there's a bunch of them. If we're including people who are dead, I mean, Bret Hart and Kurt Angle are not dead, thank God, but that's a match that I would have loved to have seen. Are you kidding me? Vader and Brock Lesnar is the match that I always say. I know I've mentioned that on the podcast in years past. Vader and Gunther would be a good one too, but Vader and Brock, like prime Big Van Vader against Brock Lesnar. What a fucking match that would be. How great would that be? As far as other matches, I mean, there's so many of them. Like a prime Stone Cold against the Macho Man. I mean, we could probably just come up with a whole bunch of them, but I don't know. For me, I feel like Vader and Brock and Bret Hart and Kurt Angle would probably be at the top of my list. And Coach Red Panda. Uh-oh. We got two pandas here. Solo and MJF, the new Jewish boys with attitude. Oh, there's my Coach Red Panda. Look at this. One of my favorite super chats. That's TNA. That's the old TNA. We're going to have the new and improved TNA as of January 1st. In fact, it's a good place to mention this. The former Impact World Champion, Josh Alexander, coming to House of Glory for the first time. Brace for Impact on January 6th. Josh Alexander going to challenge Mike Santana, brand new champion, for his Hog World Heavyweight title. I am very much looking forward to calling that one. Arabian Night, we need AJ Styles' Evil Ways 2013 theme song. That is a badass theme song. That is a pretty badass theme song. Hey, Ed Swaggle, Feliz Navidad to you as well. I hope Santa brings you what you are looking for. Prince Vegeta, I will try to stay away from Facebook. Please do. Just trust me on this. Nick Grosso coming in with the 1999. I think when Jamie Hayter should be the one to take the women's title from Toni Storm, with Mariah May costing her, and Tony and Mariah go into their own feud. Also, they could start to build to Britt and Jamie. Yeah, I mean, I think those directions make sense. I would love to see Tony and Jamie back in the ring. The last time we saw them was Full Gear last year. They had an excellent match. And it wasn't timeless Toni Storm. It was just Toni Storm. But they had a great match. I think you get back to that Jamie wins the belt back. And yeah, you're right. I mean, they could branch off finally and do Britt and Jamie. It will have been long enough with Britt out of the spotlight. And Tony can go off with Mariah May and they can work the program together. I think that makes total sense. The Winston Slip. How many talents could really be
Samoa Bro?
AEW World Champion? Well, Samoa Bro is one. Samoa Bro may be the new champion as of December 30th. I mean, if you're talking about how many people on that roster have the potential to be the AEW World Champion, realistically. You know, Darby one day, I think, if he survives the mountain, I think he can be AEW World Champion. He's one of the biggest baby faces in the company. Swerve, without question, I think is going to be a world champion in 2024. I think even a guy like Wardlow, you know, if they could get him back to a level even close to what he was at before, Wardlow could be a world champion one day, right? He doesn't feel like one now. Just feels like a defeated man. It's going to take a while, I think, to really resuscitate him. But I could see Wardlow one day getting back to that point. I mean, you look up and down the card, I thought Malachi Black one day could have been primed for that spot. Evidently, Tony Khan doesn't see him that way. Because it's all trios with him. And even Malachi himself commented on Instagram a few months ago and says, no, I'm not hurt. Yeah, these reports that maybe they're keeping him out of singles matches because he's hurt. It's like, no. I'm not the person you need to be asking that question to. So what does that tell you? I still think Malachi could be a world champion one day. Tony Khan apparently doesn't. Samoan fan, have you ever shaken someone's hand, then later find out that that person didn't wash after going to the bathroom? I would like to think that I did not find out, and therefore, if I don't know, I can't really be too disgusted by it. I'm sure that everybody in this chat, unfortunately, has shaken someone's hand after they did something very nasty. Question is, do you want to know? That's why you got to walk around with some pocket hand sanitizer. That's what you got to be doing. Right here. Always have one on standby here. Right here. There you go. You never know. Always need sanitizer. All right. The goal tonight for Be the Booker was 400 likes, and we have, in fact, broken the goal, so I thank you for that very, very much. I was getting a little worried there for a while. I thought you guys were going to let me down. What do we have here? Do I like ice cream? I think everybody likes ice cream. I have the fake ice cream. I have the non-dairy ice cream, which tastes just like regular ice cream, which I used to be able to have. So it's very, very good. I mean, who's not a fan of ice cream? Come on. I know CM Punk is. MJF mentioned CM Punk too, by the way, during our interview. Again, go check that out if you didn't see it. Anyway, let's go ahead and do it. Let's be the Booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the Booker.
Speak of the devil. There he is. It is time to be the Booker. Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. We do a little thing here at the end of these streams called Be the Booker, where we just book 3 matches at random using this special randomizer that I myself have created because I am that talented. We begin with oh, look at this. Oh my goodness. Bret the Hitman Hart and Bill Goldberg. I totally forgot, even though I put this in here, I totally forgot about this. I forgot that Bret Hart and Goldberg were, in fact, once the WCW Tag Team Champions. Oh, boy. In the annals of unlikely teams, This one might take the cake. Yeah. All right, so here we go. Bret Hart and Goldberg stepping into the ring with Cody Rhodes and Goldust. The Rhodes brothers. And do you know how this match is going to come to an end? Do you know how I would book this match? Bret Hart turns on Goldberg in mid-match. Kicks him right in the fucking head. And then Cody and Goldust win the tag team titles. That's how you book the finish of that match. Moving on. Women's Be the Booker. Hope Tony Khan is paying attention here because this is how it's done. We're going to book ourselves, well, Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Well, Tony Khan did bring in Ronda Rousey just recently. Ronda Rousey and Be the Booker. She's been in Be the Booker a few times. For the money I'm paying her, she better be in Be the Booker. Ronda Rousey going to go one-on-one against Allison Kay. I got nothing against Allison Kay, but that match just doesn't do it for me. It just doesn't move me. I need to be moved. All right, we're 1-1. We got to break the tie. We need a tiebreaker. We begin with the phenomenal AJ Styles. Just recently returned to SmackDown. Just last week, in fact. AJ came back. AJ Styles, hard to go wrong with him, but oh, as we know, it could go so wrong and Be the Booker. AJ Styles going to go one-on-one with the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Now, there's a match. You know, in TNA at one point, they had AJ playing the role of, like, the modern-day Nature Boy, right? Wasn't that basically the gimmick that he was doing? They were trying to turn him into a modern-day Nature Boy. Prime Ric Flair against the phenomenal AJ Styles. Now, that's a main event. And that is 2 out of 3 for Be the Booker. And so that is a success. Nice. Very nice. That's how you end things, on a high note. Again, for those of you who missed it, my interview with MJF is up on the channel. I had the chance to chat with him face-to-face on Monday. Finally, we were able to make that happen. And some very interesting answers to some questions that I was able to ask him about. So go check it out. Go support the video. Share it out. Anything like that can only help the video. Share it out on social media. I sure would appreciate it. Let the world know. And thank you for all the kind comments. Got a lot of nice comments under the video. People who enjoyed the interview. Again, it's a quick watch. So very, very cool. Very glad I was able to do that on Monday. I'm going to be back with you on Friday. We're going to round out the week with SmackDown. It is a taped show, but I am planning on being live on Friday night, so we'll talk about that. And the plan right now is for the Sound Off, episode 840 this Sunday, is going to be my countdown of the top matches of 2023. I'm going to try to rank them. And we're also going to talk about some of the top stories that took place in wrestling this year, and then any other big news stories we'll try to cover that as well. So that'll be episode 840 coming up on Christmas Eve. It'll be your annual Sound Off Christmas show this weekend. So ho, ho, ho. Happy holidays. Come on back. We'll do it all over again on Friday night. Thank you for all the love. Be well. Stay safe. And I'll see you guys for SmackDown. Until then, take care, guys.